Are you comfortable going to a male OBGYN? To preface this, I don't think men who choose gynecology do so with any hidden agenda. That's never the issue. I've been going to the same OBGYN lady doctor for over a decade. But she retired this year. In my hunt for a new doc who accepts my insurance, I was recommended one in my area by a women's clinic. The doctor's name was foreign, but they said she sends us a lot of patients. So I assumed it was a woman. I went in for my PAP and to get my IUD replaced. A lovely female nurse practitioner did my exam. And she scheduled me for 2 weeks later to get the IUD sorted since they had to order in my brand. When I came in, she wasn't able to get the old one out. I was a little freaked out, but she scheduled me with the doctor for the next morning. And then I found out it was a man. I was already anxious over my stuck IUD and the possibility of it being embedded. I got very uncomfortable with him being a man. Him not understanding the pain of IUD removal insertion. Now, he did it all very quickly but with such a lack of empathy. I'm used to women who handle my business down there being very communicative. This is my finger. This is the speculum. You'll feel cold. You will feel a cramp. This guy just went in there saying nothing and ripped the damn thing out of me. I felt like my insides were being pulled out of my vagina. I asked for a break before inserting the new one, but he kept prepping for insertion and saying I'm not doing anything yet. Just cleaning. When I said I'm ready, he just went for it without telling me what's happening. And I just started tearing up between the pain and feeling so anxious and distraught. I can't help but to think had it been a woman, she'd have more empathy and understand the level of pain, albeit for a short time, I was in. It would have made the process a little bit easier. The female nurse stayed in the room with me after he walked out like it was nothing to make sure I was okay. Her patience and kindness helped. He got the job done quickly. Sure. But I felt dismissed in a way. And I really don't want to be in his care again. This has been my experience with every male doctor I've ever been to. Has anyone had positive experiences with male OBGYN? I'm not particularly comfortable with any OBGYNs. It's just not a comfortable experience. The worst gynecologist I ever had was a woman. Rough and dismissive. The best and gentlest was a man. I think it's much less about sex and more about personality. I've had both male and female OBGYNs. And both good and bad experiences in my treatment. There's never been any noticeable pattern in a link between those things. My OBGYN is a man. I've never felt strange about it. Except when I needed my IUD changed. I asked if it would hurt and he said no. As I was leaving, I was speaking to his wife, his receptionist, and told her that he'd said it doesn't hurt. Her response was, "Oh yeah. Well, we'll put one up his asshole and see how much he likes it." I have never felt more seen than at that moment. No. I've been raped by men and cannot deal with them inserting instruments in me. I know it's not reasonable, but these things aren't rational. I cry every time I go. And I travel far so I can be seen by a woman I trust. My GP has offered to do my exams. But he's a man. So I just can't. I've had bad experiences with both genders and positive experiences with both genders. I gave birth last October and the practice rotated me with almost every doctor there so that I was familiar with whoever delivered my son. I saw 2 male doctors multiple times during my pregnancy and they were wonderful. While one of the women I saw was abrupt with poor bedside manner. so I agree with other statements that it's more about personality. Honestly, no. If I had a choice, it would be a female practitioner. Agree with others that it's probably more about personality. I have a male OBGYN and never had a bad experience. His female nurse assistant, on the other hand, is always rude and grumpy and acts like doing her job. Is a huge bother. I have never had a male gyno and will never willingly have one. I know not all women are spectacular and amazing. But out of the 4 women I've had, they were all great. That sounds horrific. I'm sorry you had to go through all that. I have SA trauma. Never have and probably never will feel safe seeing a male OBGYN. Don't see any reason to put myself in that position. That said, women can be equally unempathetic as men. It is a personality trait common to both women and men. Just think. A cancer doctor doesn't need to have had cancer to empathize. This doctor was just hiding his sadism behind the assumption of ignorance. Personally, I only see women OBGYNs. I've been fortunate that they've all been wonderful. I just would not feel comfortable seeing a male OBGYN at all. I prefer women. I have had much more positive experiences with male gynos than female ones. In my experience, the men have been much more concerned about causing pain or discomfort, presumably because they don't know what it feels like. So they were extra careful. The females have largely just dug right in and expected me to just deal with it. I used to swear by female OBGYNs until I was referred to my current one by a friend because he was the only OBGYN that was supportive of my choice to get my tubes tied. The others were like, you're too young to make that decision and you may change your mind. At first meeting he was like, it's your choice. Let's look at the calendar. You free next week? Like, bro. Okay, I will follow you to the end of the earth downside. He is so old, so I'm sure he'll only be practicing for a few more years. No, not with my past history. This is personal, but I would never be able to have a male GYN. I just don't trust them and wouldn't be able to relax or be at my most vulnerable with them. After one very uncomfortable experience with a male OBGYN with the most misogynistic, condescending tone I've ever dealt with in a doctor's office, I refuse. It's not really about comfort. I just have no interest in having a male OBGYN. Especially now that I'm perimenopausal. My current doctor is about my age and has a shit ton of actual empathy for what it's like. So much of OBGYN care is focused on having babies. But I need someone who also deals with peri on a regular basis. I had a displaced IUD for over 5 years. I always chose a female OBGYN, but every single one just stuck their finger up there and told me it was fine simply because the string was visible. I went to a male OBGYN and he immediately ordered an ultrasound and figured out what was wrong. Within the month I had surgery to remove it and put in a new one. I'm not saying either is better. But I spent years thinking that I would never go to a male OBGYN, but it turned out there was absolutely no guarantee that my worries would be taken more seriously by going to a woman. I didn't have a woman gyno until I was 50 or so. My male OBGYN was excellent throughout all 3 pregnancies. I've also heard horror stories when the doctor was a woman. So it's the quality of the doctor, not their sex.